New York Times posted about boomers and Gen Xers lamenting about the unspoken grief on not being grandparents. First of all, it's kind of not really unspoken. But second of all, and what I think is probably most interesting, is how this article fits into the proliferation of commentary on falling birth rates. So, what's going on? Before we get into this, this is Clear Money Tea. Thanks for stopping by. Please like, comment, and subscribe. All right, so what's with all the discourse? Most economists care because our entire system is built on growing or at least stable populations. Without it, it's difficult to find someone to take care of the elderly. There isn't a tax base to cover government spending on social programs, and places are susceptible to urban decay. Honestly, that doesn't really matter to many people for their day-to-day lives, and some point out that the endless growth is not really that sustainable as well as detrimental to the environment. No matter what you believe, what I think is most important is if people are having the number of kids that they want to have. And some statistics say that they actually are. What people consider to be the ideal family size has actually been increasing, with 3 plus being the preferred for an increasing amount of people over time. However, birth rates are below the 2.1 replacement rate in the US and many other countries. Now, what are all the reasons people aren't having kids despite indications that they want to? I think it comes down to increased choice, financial reasons, and cultural shifts. All right, so I'm going to get into those 3 reasons, first starting with more choices. If you ask people why they aren't having kids, you're going to hear that likely the number one reason is financial. However, the number one reason that data says is that people simply don't want to have kids. Essentially, that signifies that there are more appealing things for people to do other than child rearing. If you think about it, more women have more choices than ever before. They can decide to pursue education, they can decide to pursue jobs, hobbies, anything. Before, women were not really readily financially independent, and honestly, we couldn't really decide what we wanted to do with our own lives. So, but when you have choices, inevitably there'll be a decrease in people who want to have kids. But while there is more choice on the surface, financial issues obscure this to some extent as well. So if you were looking to put your pitchforks up before, saying that you don't believe choice is a more important factor than financial issues, just put them down for now, and let's continue on to financial reasons. So I'm going to begin with a little bit of a contradiction that people bring up when you say that financial reasons are a reason why people don't want to have kids. So there is data to suggest that the lowest income tend to have more kids, and countries that do have really generous child encouragement policies still tend to have low birth rates. However, I don't really think that that's contrary to financial reasons being a significant impediment to people starting families. In fact, I'm going to go as far to say even when people say financial reasons are not the top reason they're not having kids, you can still oftentimes link it back to financial reasons. So imagine people strive for higher education to make more money. If jobs don't require as much higher education, would people still go into significant debt for degrees? And if they didn't, that would mean a younger person making good money without debt looming over their head. So would that person be more likely to decide to have kids? I think on average, yeah, you will have that. But back to the original contradiction, why do those with lower income have more kids? Honestly, I think other factors just have more of an impact and overshadow that. So from sex education, opportunity cost, cultural, and otherwise, all those outweighing financial reasons more for why lower income households have a higher birth rate than higher income households. And of course, there are a ton of other financial reasons just in general that impact everyone. So of course, there's a rise of the dual income household. Many couples have 2 adults working in a household. So if you need 2 incomes to afford life, the math kind of weighs out. It's more difficult to feel comfortable having kids. I know that's definitely a factor for me as well as this next point. So one of the more significant impacts on having a child is owning a home. This has been a big focus when falling birth rates come up. Increased rent prices are associated with lower fertility rates. Increased home prices can be a mixed bag, but keep in mind you have to own your home to benefit from increased housing prices. But overall, we have unprecedented rent and house price growth due to lack of building, inflation, and restrictive zoning laws.
The median age for first-time home buyers has been increasing steadily over time.
Which is not great when you consider that most women rank owning a home as a priority before having kids. So women are more likely to delay having a baby without owning a home. So the final reason I'm going to get into is cultural. So there have been a number of cultural reasons and shifts as well, which no surprise have financial links, and all of that impacts the fertility rate. So the first one I'm going to discuss is women in the workplace. So there's this Pew Research survey that I think is really interesting as it relates to millennial women just on the cusp of entering the workplace. Millennial women believed at that time that having a kid makes it harder to advance in the workplace. So now, if your current goal is to do well in your career that you paid a lot of money for, Is having a kid going to be on the forefront of your mind? I'm going to say probably not. I know that it definitely wasn't for me, and I'm sure plenty of other women as well. So this next one is a little bit more nebulous, but there's definitely like kind of this cultural shift of telling women that you can kind of that you can have it all and not really focusing on how it's gonna sort of play out. The track most people are told to focus on is school and then finding a job. Finding a partner and having kids will just sort of fall into place after that. In fact, women were told that you can just like have kids later or just freeze your eggs. There's no practical discussion on the fact that freezing your eggs can cost on average 10K and can cost up to 1K to store them. Or that as women, our fertility decreases as we age, which we do know, but that when we're ready, we might not be able to have biological kids as safely or as easily as earlier in life. And there's just not really any sort of emphasis on how you can have it all, just that we should be kind of narrow minded in our focus and all the other stuff will just fall into place. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't focus on education or work. I think those are obviously really important to focus on, but I think the balance and being realistic of things just really don't always fall into place, and that we should keep that in mind. There's this emphasis on sequential building of life steps while ignoring the realities of biological clocks of people. There's not really many people just sort of challenging the narrative that everything will line up. And of course, we can still live a fulfilling life, even if those things don't line up. But I think it's important that it is something that we do keep in mind. And this sort of sequential building of life leads to the next point. So marriages are happening later or not at all. So this article states, young adults have come to view marriage as a capstone event. Couples used to marry and build a life together. Now they build a life first. While this is a cultural shift, it's been led partially for financial reasons and greater choice. Women can now make their own money and don't need to get married for financial security. Because of that, some women choose not to get married. Now, of course, many women still want to get married and do get married, but think about the impact of delaying marriage when it comes to kids. Most people still wait to get married to have children. Data shows that married women have a higher birth rate than unmarried women. Pair that with the fact that women are still getting married later, you will have at least a delay in births. However, that also leads to a drop in birth rates. And that's, of course, obviously because of a woman's natural fertility and likely because running around after kids becomes less appealing as we age. People also delay marriage to complete higher education or achieve financial security. People complete higher education in order to make more money. In fact, the number one reason why people delay marriage in the 25 to 34 age bracket was financial. All right, so the last major cultural shift that I think is at play is actually pretty positive. In the US, there has been a cultural shift of trying to stop demonizing sex outside of marriage and instead promote safe sex practices. There's also been the shift of promoting choice and options when it comes to parenthood. So there's been a bit of a debate about how serious we are as a country of that in recent years. But if you compare things now compared to 30, 40, 50 years ago, there's no question about the impact of education and increased options have had. So we can definitely see unintended pregnancies are down 15% and teen pregnancy rates are down by half. There have also been new and effective birth control methods released as well and increased availability of different birth control methods. All of these things I think are really great. They just lead to falling fertility rates. Personally, I think decreasing unintended pregnancies does have a positive impact for people's well-being. I think on average it's been a positive thing. But overall, there are many issues and they impact different groups of people differently. I didn't even get into the impact of student loans or distance from support systems. But I think this gives a rundown of issues I think are intuitive to the day-to-day people of why younger generations aren't having kids anymore. All right, that's it. So thanks for stopping by. Again, this is Clear Money Tea. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye, everyone.